The End is Nigh by Harlan, Guthrie. The Roof. Emma and I sat on the edge of the building, our feet hanging over the edge with the crumbled city before us. She leaned over and spat playfully. 5 stories down, the wet glob smacked the head of one of the undead below, which then let out a weak moan. 10 points, she said, smiling towards me. I guess that makes us even, yeah? I asked, half-jokingly. Yeah, no. I think that makes me the winner. She stood up and walked back towards the apartment's roof air conditioner, hopped onto it, and laid back with her face towards the now darkening sky. I stood up as well and walked over to her slowly. Her mood was heavier than before. "And you're sure all the batteries are dead?" she asked with a sort of desperate accusation. "Emma," I pleaded. Fine. She hopped up again, unable to sit still, knowing what was to come. She walked about 10 feet until she was just before the edge of the roof and turned back to me. "We could just jump off, end it now, save ourselves from whatever is coming." The horde below moaned a bit louder, or maybe they just seemed louder, as if they knew the subject of fresh meat had just come up. "Really? Is that how you want this to go? After everything we've done, everything we've been through, to just give up like that? And what would even happen? Where would we go?" "What do you want to fucking do then?" she shot back at me. I stood there dumbfounded. There was nothing we could do. This time, there was no out, and she knew it. "Thought so," she quipped. I looked down at my feet, almost ashamed that I couldn't save us. Emma looked at me, and her expression immediately changed to one of compassion. "I'm sorry. I know I'm not being fair," she sighed as she walked over to me. "I just feel like my hands are tied. It's frustrating and depressing all at the same time." "I know," I said understandingly. "I get it. I feel the same way. We still have a few flares." "That'll keep them off for what? An hour?" she asked. Maybe less." I sat down and set my head on my hands, hoping for some miracle solution that we hadn't thought of. Emma walked over, sat down beside me, and kissed my forehead. "All right, let's just sit here together," she said softly. Below, the grumble of the creatures began to grow louder in anticipation for their transformation come nightfall. They began to stir and move around, the noises sounding less and less of this world. "Sounds like the kids are getting antsy," Emma said jokingly. We sat there watching the sunset for a long while. "What happens when you die in hell?" I asked. Emma thought on it for a short time. "I don't know. Maybe all this just starts over again. Maybe we go back to when we first died and have to start the game all over again. I remember 2 months ago waking up here. I thought it was a bad dream." "Same. If that's true, do you think we'll remember each other?" I asked hopefully. "Maybe this isn't even the first time we've been here," she said, half joking. Then a dark thought dawned on us. Maybe we've been here before. Maybe our hell was to fight the creatures, live in fear and hide, forever in an endless loop as the ultimate prey. Justly so for what we did when we were alive. "Well, if we're doomed to repeat this again, let's make a note, here, on this roof, so that we can find it again and maybe work together faster, or try harder, or—" Emma trailed off, trying to come up with some reason that made sense. Tears started to form in the corners of her eyes. I stood up as well and put my hand on her shoulder to stop her from pacing back and forth. I handed her a small piece of chalk. "You're right. Let's write a message," I said with a pained smile. She looked at me, smiling with tears in her eyes, and took the piece of chalk from my hand. She wiped her eyes and took a deep breath. "Okay, so where should we write this message?" she asked with forced excitement. On the roof was a door leading into the building. It protruded from the roof and had 3 cement walls enclosing it. "How about there?" I gestured to the door. We could write it on one of the walls. Maybe we'd see it there next time. Emma smiled and began to walk over. I turned to see the sun just about to go down. We better make it quick. The sun's about to set, I said, turning towards Emma, who was facing the wall. Her face was white, as if all the color had drained from it in an instant. What's wrong? I asked, walking over. I stopped and stood next to her, looking at the cement wall she was to write our message on. There, written in Emma's own hand, was the heading: Emma and Dan, days survived. Underneath were hundreds of separate numbers: 5, 11, 145, 341, 2, 66. All signifying the number of days we had survived in the past. Emma turned to me. In the dying light, I could see the tears were back in her eyes and starting to roll down her cheeks. I leaned in and kissed her softly. Then I took the piece of chalk from her hand and turned to the wall. In large white letters, I wrote our number, 43, and dropped the chalk on the floor by our feet, which was riddled with other pieces of broken chalk. See you tomorrow. She just laughed and hugged me tight as hundreds of blood-curdling screeches echoed out over the night. We may be in the darkest place in the world, but we are each other's light.